Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddassa. Chatuhi bhikkhave angehi samannagato ranyo bhadro assajaniyo. Rajaraho hoti rajabhuggo Ranyo anganteva sankhang gacchati iti. Dear Dhamma friends, actually we are going to start the first Dhamma sermon of this English medium retreat going to be conducted at Nissarana. So this would be the 279th retreat, and we are going to remind certain facts before we are going to the formal topic. And before the beginning of each and every retreat, we usually consider these facts or remind these facts, because these are extremely important as a group, as an individual, when we are developing our spiritual path. Actually, Buddha mentioned that we need to support our path through few factors. So basically 5 factors. One thing is sila, the other one is sutta, the other one is sakaccha, the other one is samatha, and the last one is the vipassana. Now these 5 factors, sometimes mentioned as anuggahita, is mentioned in the 5 supports sutta, or we can call it as the anuggahita sutta. And sometimes we again and again reminds this each and every retreat. Actually, sila anuggahita I am not going to explain in detail, because that is very much related to today's Dhamma sermon. But the other anuggahita, so other supports, are important to pay some attention. For example, the sutta anuggahita is something that we are trying to do now, trying to cover now. The sutta, in the sense, here what Buddha mentioned is that one has to hear Buddha's words, one has to hear Buddha's teachings. So that is what important, because we don't need to reinvent the wheel. Rather, we need to fully comprehend Buddha's teaching, fully understand Buddha's teaching, so that we may not go astray. We may not mislead ourselves. And again, sometimes what we understand might not be the exact truth. So we probably have to verify it again and again by another explanation by various other teachers. So that is important, so that we may clarify our doubts, remove various perplexities, so that we may become confident of what our understanding. So sometimes our understanding may evolve, and what we understood several years ago may not be the exact understanding what we are having today, because as we are thoroughing in our practice, as we are progressing in our practice, so our understanding on Dhamma also evolves and grows. As a result of that, more and more deeper understandings are possible. So that can be properly guided through the Buddha's teaching. So hearing Buddha's teaching time to time is therefore quite necessary. So therefore Buddha mentioned it is necessary to support our practice through the hearing of Buddha's teaching. That is called sutta anuggahita. And then Buddha mentioned that we need to involve with various discussions, because sometimes our way of understanding may not be complete, and we need to go through certain discussions, dialogue with another person, another teacher, a kalyana mitta, so that we can remove various doubts further and have a clear path. And then we can confidently continue our practice. And again, in particular to the retreat, actually we do this during the afternoon as a Dhamma discussion, as a discussion period where we are discussing our experiences. So that is what we try to do during 1 to 2 p.m. where we are trying to expose our experiences, share our experiences, so that others also get encouraged, or others also sometimes get some guidance. And again, then the others also may understand, okay, these things are something practical, something possible. It is not kind of obsolete things, rather these are still valid things. So that is why we need to discuss these experiences. It is not that we are trying to show off or to sort of become conceited. Rather, we are trying to expose our experience with another person, another teacher, so that we can get a proper direction, or we can get some guidance. If we have done something wrong, we can correct it, and we can get another encouragement. So this kind of an understanding is possible when we are going through some sort of a discussion. So therefore discussion is quite important. So I invite all of you to participate and to submit your reports, so that we understand that you are doing something, that you are involved in your spiritual growth. You do develop mindfulness, you do develop concentration and wisdom. So that is evident when we are hearing the reports. So that is what we are trying to do during the discussion forum. On the other hand, Buddha mentioned that we need to support through concentration practice, where our minds are typically fairly scattered. Our mind may jump from one thing to another thing. So it doesn't like to stay on something what we like, what we want, what is something beneficial. Rather, we are driven by the mind. We are driven by the defilements of the mind. Very much like we are like a victim, a poor slave, which is simply following cravings of the mind. But on the other hand, in order to practice Buddha's teaching, we are now trying to develop fair amount of concentration based upon certain kind of objects recommended by the Buddha. So those objects are not harmful to us, rather they are quite beneficial. They start to help us so that our mind would be more straightened, concentrated, collected, and that can then be used to develop wisdom. So the wisdom development or vipassana comes as the last practice, even though it is the most important and the lifelong practice. So these 5 supports are to be utilized again and again, have to be taken up again and again, so that our whole path, whole development would be properly supported. If we are not properly supporting through these mechanisms, through these methods, sometimes we go on wrong directions. Sometimes we get misled. So that is why it is quite important to maintain proper sila and to have some understanding about Buddha's teaching, participate in various Dhamma discussions, again to develop meditation, one side through the samatha practice, where we are trying to concentrate the mind, tranquilize the mind, and on the other hand, once the mind is fairly concentrated, to use that to investigate various present moment phenomena, so that we can develop insights. So this is the very much thing that we are trying to do during the retreat situation. So you are already taken 8 precepts, so that you can be fairly aware of that. And again, now we are delivering a Dhamma sermon, you can be attentive to that, so that you may understand what we are trying to discuss. On the other hand, you can actively participate in the Dhamma discussion, so that you can eliminate any kind of doubts you have, and you can also participate in encouraging others through your properly written report, meditation report. And on the other hand, you can constantly develop mindfulness, which will lead to develop tranquility, concentration, and the wisdom in our minds. Having said that, I like to come to the topic of this English medium retreat. I have selected one sutta which is coming in the Anguttara Nikaya, the numerical discourses of the Buddha, and which is named as Pathama Ajaniya Sutta. We can translate it as the first thoroughbred sutta. Now, when we consider thoroughbred, Ajaniya, the term literally means that he's a well-bred, he's a well brought up. Now, actually, as you probably have already guessed, the point is related to a horse. You know, during the old days, kings have their own horses and they have horse armies. And therefore, horse is one of the important asset of the king. And actually, king has very special horses, and so they are thoroughly bred. So that is why it is called thoroughbred horse, and they are very rare and extremely beautiful, extremely powerful, and extremely speedy, and again they know right proportions. Now Buddha mentioned like this: Chatohi bhikkave angehi samannagato ranyo bhadro assajaniyo rajaraho hoti rajaboggo. Bhikkhus, possessing 4 factors, a king's excellent thoroughbred horses is worthy of a king. Now Buddha highlights 4 qualities available to a horse, then only he become worthy of a king. I mean, we can't say the other horses are really worthy to consider as the horses, as the king's horse. But Buddha highlights, if he has, or this particular horse has these particular 4 qualities, then it is worthy of considering this particular horse as suitable for a king, an accessory to a king, and reckoned as a factor of kingship. You know, as a king on the good old days, so they are being reckoned with various factors. This having a powerful kingdom, having a thoroughbred horse, having a thoroughbred, say, elephant, and then having a beautiful queen, a mighty army. So likewise, there are certain factors defines the supremacy of the king. Now here, Buddha highlights certain 4 qualities of the horse, which actually helps to recognize, okay, this king is well protected by this kind of a horse. So what are those 4 qualities? Buddha mentioned here, a king's excellent thoroughbred horse possesses beauty. Now he is a very well beautiful horse, and he is with strong, and he's a pretty strong horse. He possesses strength, and he possesses very high speed, and he actually has right proportions. So if one has these 4 qualities Buddha mentioned, that particular horse is suitable to be a kind of a jewel to the king, kind of a asset to the king, an accessory to the king. Now, having said this, actually Buddha used this simile to explain us certain Dhamma. So what is that Dhamma? And then Buddha highlights, so too bhikkhus, possessing 4 qualities, a bhikkhu is worthy of gifts. Now you know, whenever Buddha gives some sort of a simile, he always try to connect it with our practice, connect it with our, say, monkhood, connect it with our sila, connect it with our concentration or wisdom. So likewise, he finds out very beautiful way of passing a message to us with very interesting similes. Here also mentioning the value of the horse king, the king's horse. So Buddha is now trying to come up with a kind of an analogy between a monk, between a practitioner to that horse's qualities. So Buddha mentioned, now typically, you know, when we consider a monk, so there are certain qualities attributed to a monk, and there are certain qualities that we attribute to the Sangha. Sometimes you all know that we are using Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho, Ujupatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho, Nyaya Patipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho, Samichi Patipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho. So likewise, we are reciting the verses to pay our reverence to the Sangha, to the noble Sangha. So what are these qualities? Actually, so these qualities actually help us to understand the real qualities when one is properly following Buddha's teaching. Keep the Buddha as their role model, as their teacher, great teacher. And again, Buddha mentioned, so similarly, so when these another four qualities are available with a particular monk, with a particular nun, or with any other practitioner who devotedly practice Buddha's teaching, then that particular person too is worthy of reverence, worthy of these Sangha qualities. So you can see, so Buddha actually tried to develop certain qualities within us, cultivate certain qualities within us, and he is actually now trying to motivate us to develop those qualities. So if one has these qualities, Buddha mentioned, that particular person is worthy of reverence, worthy of various gifts, worthy of honor. So likewise, he becomes the unsurpassed field of merit. So what are the qualities that here Buddha recommends? I mean, it is not just having a robe or having some other thing actually makes one really reverential, worthy of gifts, or become a field of merit. But Buddha here try to highlight when a particular monk, a nun, whoever practitioner, if he has these particular qualities that Buddha is trying to highlight here, if he already have these kind of qualities, if he is developing these qualities, if he possesses these qualities, definitely he is worthy of gifts, he is worthy of reverence. He becomes unsurpassed field of merit. And now Buddha is trying to come up with the four qualities, what we are trying to develop, what we need to develop, and what he recommends to develop. And interestingly, so as we discussed a few moments ago, that horse has four qualities. What are they? First one is the beauty. Second one is the strength. Third one is the speed. Fourth one is the right proportions. Now similarly, Buddha mentioned a practitioner, a Sangha member, also has beauty, also has strength, also has speed, and also has right proportions. Now we come up with the kind of a doubt, so what are they? What is the beauty of a member of Sangha? What is the beauty of a monk? What is the strength of a monk? What is the speed of a monk? Or what is the speed of the practitioner? What is meant by right proportions? So different people can give different answers. So someone can say, if one has a beautiful temple, so it can represent the beauty of a monk. If someone is really beautiful by his pleasant look, if he is really adorning his robe, he is beautiful. So likewise, many people can give various definitions. But here, we need to look at what Buddha really mentioned as the beauty of a monk, as the beauty of a lay practitioner. And how does a bhikkhu possess beauty? Katancha bhikkhave bhikkhu vanna sampanno hoti. So now Buddha is trying to explain us what is called vanna sampanna. So how somebody becomes beautiful, it is not through the beauty of the body. It is not through the beauty of the temple. It is not through the beauty of the, say, the vehicle or any other materialistic thing. But rather, Buddha gave a very interesting answer here. Buddha mentioned, Sīlavā hoti, Pātimokka sangvara sanguto viharati, Āchāra gochara sampanno, Anumattesu vajjesu vayadassāvi, Samādāya sikkati sikkāpadesu. Now, Buddha gave an entirely different explanation here. A monk, a practitioner, can become beautiful through his sila, through his virtues, through his morality. Here a bhikkhu is virtuous. He dwells restrained by the Patimokka. Now, if we consider a monk's sila, there are 4 types of sila, 4 types of restrainment recommended to a monk. So Patimokka is where the training rules are mentioned, and when one get higher ordination, so one has to adhere to these training rules. Now if we consider a lay person, so he doesn't need to go through these ones. Rather, he can go through 5 precepts. So that is what recommended to a typical lay person. So he may either a layman, laywoman, so he can take care of 5 precepts. And on the other hand, sometimes, as you all are now doing, so when one is participating to a retreat, an intensive meditation retreat, or when you are practicing coming to the temple or to a monastery during the Uposatha day, during the full moon Poya day, there probably you can go for 8 precepts. And sometimes lay people also undertake 10 precepts. And when one become a samanera, a samaneri, he or she gets the 10 precepts. Now, on the other hand, when one becomes higher ordained, he becomes a higher ordained monk or bhikkhu or bhikkhuni. There he or she takes the Patimokka Sangvara Sila. Now, all these different kinds of Sila are voluntary. So it is not that Buddha tried to enforce or try to forcefully kind of command for us to follow these. It appears like that actually. Now there are various training rules, so I have to adhere to them. So likewise, we get a kind of a controlled situation when we look at it from the surface. But on the other hand, if we look at it closely, so no one is trying to force us to adhere to certain precepts. Say for example, you are a layman, so no one is trying to force you to go for 8 precepts or 10 precepts or monk's precepts. So you can be fully adhere to 5 precepts. But if you are trying to a monastery, a temple, to practice 8 precepts on a Poya day, now you are voluntarily take that 8 precepts. Now if you become a monk or nun at the novice period, so you are voluntarily take 10 precepts. And again you are voluntarily take Patimokka Sangvara Sila, the higher ordination precepts. Now you can see kind of a volunteering is there. So you request these precepts. It is not that someone is pushing you towards these. It is not that someone is forcing you towards these training rules. Rather, you have to understand their value, and then only you voluntarily, honestly come and try to protect it. So then only its beauty may be available. At the beginning, actually, we don't feel that much. Actually, at the beginning, we don't have much of an understanding. So we are simply following. But later, as we are slowly maturing ourselves, then only we may understand the value of Sila, what is the real objective of it, and again, how voluntarily we can practice it. So that is where sometimes when we are requesting Sila, Anukampang upadaya. We are adding a certain phrase called anukampang upadaya. Out of sympathy to me, please give me 8 precepts. Please give me 10 precepts. Please give me 5 precepts. So likewise, some sort of a request is there coming from the observee, coming from the person who is observing the precepts. So therefore, that is a kind of a very humble, honest request coming from that person's side. So then only a monk or nun give the precepts. So you can see it is a kind of a voluntary activity. It is not kind of a forceful activity. So therefore, there's a possibility of breaking precepts because of our unmindful activities, because of our ignorance. But again and again, there is a possibility of correcting our sila. If there are precepts broken, so we can correct them. But on the other hand, we should have kind of a motivation to protect sila as much as properly, so that even a slightest mistake may not happen. So that is why it is highlighted anumattesu vajjesu bhayaдаssavino. So we have to see even one has to train himself or herself so that he may not break even a minute precept. Even a slightest transgression may not happen. So that's a kind of a motivation. That's a kind of a honest motivation one may has to have. It is not that we are trying to find out various holes in the precepts and so that you will be sort of like you are going through a lawsuit, you are going through a court case. So where people are trying to find out various holes in the laws. But here, one is honestly trying to further and further develop oneself in the sila. So rather than finding out faults, rather than finding out loopholes, so he is now trying to more and more restrain himself, refine his sila, and even without grasping it. Now there's another interesting point here. And one occasion, Venerable Ananda, he directly asked, what is the purpose of this sila? Kimatyani bhante kusalani silani kima ani sansani. Now, Venerable Ananda is asking, Bhante, what is the reward? What is the blessing of the sila? Wholesome morality. So this is a direct question asked by Venerable Ananda. So when this is asked, Buddha mentioned avippatisarattha niko ananda kusalani silani avippatisara anisansani. Freedom from remorse, freedom from regret is the reward, is the blessing of the morality. Now, we need to understand, are we getting these blessings? Are we getting these rewards? Or are we trying to do something else? Are we expecting something else? So actually, Buddha has recommended his sila so that its result would be the freedom from remorse, freedom from regrets. But on the other hand, when we are developing or when we are trying to protect sila, if we have certain regrets, certain remorse, then that indicates we are doing something wrong. We have gone somewhere wrong. So that is where we need to somewhat clarify certain things. We need to refine our understanding so that our mind may not encounter any kind of regret, may not go through any kind of a remorse. So if we are protecting proper sila, more and more mind has to be somewhat joyful, free from any kind of a regret. The opposite of regret may be kind of a joy, inner joy. And it's when sila becomes properly protected, so one has to have this kind of inner joy. So there is no any kind of a burden in the mind. So sometimes when we are trying to protect sila, so we sometimes grasp the sila. We take it too hard, too strong. So that is where another term coming as Silabbata Paramasa. So during the good old days, during the Buddha's time, mostly, and people have undertaken various ascetic practices. Now they consider, so that is the main criterion for the purification, and they are very much kind of a mortification to the body, and they are ascetic practices, and they take it very strongly. They are really grasping those. Even though we may not do that kind of self-mortification practices today, but sometimes certain people are grasping sila too strong, and even when a slightest mistake happens, suppose that you are not mindful at a particular time and a slight mistake has happened, so sometimes they are not sort of properly handling it, rather they regret about it, they remorse about it. So this is not what Buddha has expected. As Buddha expected, Buddha mentioned non-regret, non-remorse, freedom from remorse is the benefit, is the reward. Now therefore, if there is a mistake happen, so we have to be careful not to regret, rather to find out various ways and means to overcome the regret and again establish ourselves properly on morality, so that we again become kind of deserving more and more growth in the spiritual side. So therefore, the morality is not for us to have doubts. Morality is not for us to torture ourselves. Morality is not for us to compare with another person. Rather, morality is for us to have freedom from remorse, freedom from regret. So this is extremely important. Another occasion. Now, in another sutta, Buddha mentioned with respect to 5 precepts. It is called Abhisanda Sutta. Buddha mentioned if one is practicing 5 precepts. Now these 5 precepts are not only unique to our Buddha. Now Gautama Buddha has mentioned the 5 precepts. Now these 5 precepts are not unique to Gautama Buddha. Buddha mentioned these are extremely ancient. They are not kind of invention by the our Buddha, but they are coming from very ancient time. And again, no one has very much argued about them. And they are the supreme. And they are the originals. They are very much like the standard. They are quite traditional. And they are unadulterated. So likewise, very interesting terms Buddha used. In Pali it is mentioned Aggannyani, Rattanyani, Vansanyani, Poranani, Asankinnani, Asankinna Pubbani. Now these are very strong terms. So with those strong terms, what Buddha wants to highlight is that these precepts are not kind of a finding of himself. Rather it is a traditional, very ancient, a long-standing, unadulterated code of standard. So if one is practicing these standards, Buddha mentioned there are a lot of benefits. It makes the whole society, an individual first of all, more and more humane. And as a family, more and more cohesive, more humane. And the society at large also will be benefited. But, today even we can understand how moral values are degraded, how many issues have come. because we have forgotten the value, we have forgotten the benefits, we have forgotten the moral standards. Now Buddha highlights here, so these moral standards are quite ancient, quite traditional, and long-standing, unadulterated, and no one has refuted. No one has any suspicion about it. So they are the essence of a kind of a person. They are the kind of the beauty of a person, especially a beauty of a monk or a nun. So if one is practicing honestly the precepts, maintaining the precepts, enjoying the joy coming from the proper maintaining of the precepts, then Buddha mentioned, so that is the beauty of that monk or a nun. And on the other hand, now if you consider certain benefits, now sometimes people don't want to practice precepts because they don't know the benefits. Because nowadays people want to know every time what is the gain. Now there are certain suttas Buddha highlighted even the benefits of the 5 precepts. If one is practicing 5 precepts, so what are the benefits? So Buddha mentioned, actually if one is practicing 5 precepts, he is very much like giving a great donation. He is a really generous person. So how one become a generous person? By practicing 5 precepts. So here Buddha mentioned, suppose one is practicing the first precept. He is not killing animals or harming animals. So there he mentioned, so he is giving freedom for the whole animal world, for the whole human world. And he is giving some sort of freedom of any kind of a harm, any kind of a torture coming from his side. So the others may not have any doubt about him. Others may not have any fear about him. Others may not get frightened about him. Because he is not a person who is harming others, who is torturing others, who is killing others, who is cruel to others. So when people know exactly this person is a person who is practicing the first precept, he never tried to harm, never tried to kill, never tried to torture. So then the other people enjoying kind of a freedom that they can freely move with him. They can enjoy that freedom because they have the trust that this person will never attack, will never torture, will never kill. So Buddha mentioned this is the first kind of benefit, first kind of a freedom, first kind of a generous activity that a person who is protecting the very first precepts, the Panatipata, Veramani, that person is giving to the society at large. So similar explanation is given to the other 4 precepts as well. So if one is practicing non-stealing, abstaining from stealing. So similarly Buddha mentioned, so he gives some sort of a freedom to the others, so others may understand, okay, this fellow will never steal. So I can simply give certain things to him, he will return it back. He doesn't want to cheat anyone. He doesn't want to deceive anyone. He doesn't want to rob anyone. He doesn't want to steal anyone. So the others feel comfortable dealing with him. This is a kind of a freedom. So if one is not going through any kind of wrong or misbehavior in the sexual life, so there again the other people may understand, okay, this person is a trustworthy person, so he may not go through any wrong kind of a relationship. So they have that freedom then. Similarly, if one is not lying, he automatically become a trustworthy person. Because the other people may understand, okay, he's a trustworthy person. He never lie. And if he's not using intoxicants, so other people may know, okay, he's not using these things. He's a sober person. So as a result of that, the other people trying to enjoy that kind of a freedom. So this is interestingly Buddha mentioned in certain suttas as certain benefits. Now, on the other hand, if we consider another sutta, say in Mahaparinibbana Sutta, Buddha mentioned that there are 5 benefits, 5 blessings of a person who is practicing sila. He mentioned that he starts to increase his wealth because he become more diligent. When one is practicing precepts, moral, so he come to a kind of a mindful path. He become more and more heedful. When he is heedful, he doesn't simply waste his time. He doesn't waste his time in idle chatter. He doesn't participate in wrong activities. Therefore, he has some more and more time to involve, to utilize in proper activities, to the development of his whatever the business or whatever other beneficial thing. As a result of that, Buddha mentioned, great increase of wealth can happen for a person who is practicing precepts. On the other hand, a fair amount of reputation is growing regarding this person. And again, whenever he has to approach in any kind of a society, whenever he wants to represent, whenever he wants to deliver a speech, whenever he wants to take part in some kind of a society, he can confidently do it. So basically kind of a confident deportment is possible because he has this inner strength. He develops fair amount of inner confidence because of his own moral standards. Now he can approach any kind of a society, any kind of a group with confidence because he knows very well that he is a proper person. He has maintained his virtues properly. As a result of that, Buddha mentioned, so any group he can come forward, in front of any group he can come forward and he can sort of discuss anything, he can deliver a speech, something like that is happen. And another point, he may go through a kind of mindful death, a serene death, and after the death he can be reborn in a good happy state. Now these are in a way somewhat we can say some gross kind of benefits with respect to the sila. But on the other hand, as a group of meditation, say practitioners, so we better look at what are the benefits to our meditation. So what is the benefit that we get for our meditation? Now if we don't care about morality, so once we sit and once we close our eyes, so various kinds of activities that we did sometimes come to our mind. Because what we are trying to do through the meditation, through the development of mindfulness, is more and more kind of an introvert activity. So there are our own inner blessing is quite necessary. So if we have kind of a feeling, kind of a positive feeling about ourselves, which is much more important for the development of meditation. But on the other hand, if we have some sort of a negative kind of a attitude towards ourselves, then we don't feel that we are worthy of going further. So that is why Buddha highlights, so when you are developing fair amount of sila, maintaining fair amount of proper standard, so it gives kind of a self-confidence, kind of an inner joy, kind of a righteous joy, anavajja sukha, righteous joy. So when such kind of a joy is available, so it prepares very conducive environment for the development of concentration. Now, Buddha mentioned this to one king called Mahanama. At one occasion, King Mahanama come and ask from the Buddha that he involves with various activities, and sometimes he have to participate in some difficult activities, and therefore if any chance that the death happen at such occasion, what's going to happen to him? So there Buddha very interestingly point out that again and again when one is recollecting certain qualities of the Buddha, certain qualities of the Dhamma, qualities of the Sangha, qualities of one's own Sila, so likewise certain points are there. So his death may not be a kind of an empty kind of a death. So there Buddha interestingly highlight, so this reflection of one's own Sila is extremely important. Attano Silani Anussareyasi. So one's own Sila, one's own morality, one can reflect. So then Buddha mentioned, Nevassa tasmin samaye raga pariyuttitan chittang hoti. So when one is reflecting one's own Sila, so one's mind may not trapped in the lust. When one's reflecting on one's own Sila, one's mind may not trapped in hatred. Similarly, not trapped in delusion. So you can see the Sila can be used as a mechanism to calm down one's mind, purify one's mind from defilements in that sense. On the other hand, Buddha mentioned Ujugata mevassa tasmin samaye chittang hoti. Now, with respect to Sila, now you are reflecting and now your mind has well focused on Sila. Now, there are no any other kind of distractions. Now, you are reflecting on Sila. Sila, the morality is your object. And when your mind is well directed onto that subject, onto that kind of a meditation subject, then Buddha mentioned you are getting some sort of a labati atta vedam, labati dhamma vedam, labati dhammopasanhitam pamujja. Now, when you are reflecting your honest protection of Sila, Buddha mentioned now you are getting some sort of a joy connected with the Dhamma, connected with the Sila. And you have kind of a sense of the goal. And kind of a joy now going to arise. Say, for example, you are previously, say several years ago, you are not much bothered about Sila. You have heard from someone the value of Sila, the morality, and you honestly want to protect it. It is not in order to show off, or you want to become highlighted, or you want to win something, or you want to gain something. Rather, you honestly want to verify it. Suppose like that. Now you are honestly protecting it. So when you are maintaining it, so later once you reflect back, some sort of a clarity, some sort of a joy, some sort of a calmness may appear in the mind, and you may notice it, and once you notice it, you feel joyful. And on the other hand, very interesting point is that more and more you develop mindfulness, more and more you are trying to maintain your attention to your body, especially at the early stages of our practice. So body becomes our main theme of attention. We are trying to more and more maintain our attention closer to the body. Now, when that is happening, one interesting result is that we can further enhance it by combining mindfulness with clear comprehension. Sati with sampajanya. Now, mindfulness and clear comprehension go hand in hand. Say for example, when you are practicing Anapanasati, at the beginning you may simply use breathing to establish mindfulness. But later, as you are trying to investigate breathing, investigate in each in-breath, investigate each out-breath, now that is where you are refining your attention. And that is what we call as sampajanya, clear comprehension. The breath itself is a subtle object, and now you are trying to recognize very subtle aspect of breathing. So that adds another skill to yourself. Not only mindfulness, now you have clear comprehension. Now, when mindfulness and clear comprehension go hand in hand, Buddha mentioned the next result is that you get moral shame and moral dread. Now you can't behave like before. Assume that you are someone who completely neglected all the moral standards, who completely neglected virtues. Now, when you are developing mindfulness and clear comprehension, you can't behave like the before, say several years ago, that you were done. Now, this proper mindfulness and proper clear comprehension has to develop or has to give moral dread, moral fear, or moral shame as its product, as its benefit, as its result. Hiriottappa as its result. And when one has moral shame and moral fear, moral dread, so next thing is that you may start to do only the correct bodily activities, only the correct verbal activities, only the proper things to think. In other terms, so your complete change of behavior has to happen. Suppose that you were not a really virtuous, really moral person before, but you come across mindfulness, you want to develop mindfulness, and if you are developing mindfulness properly, coupled with clear comprehension, one important result of that is to have moral shame and moral dread. As a result of that, one important result is to have 3 proper way of conduct: proper bodily conduct, proper verbal conduct, and proper mental conduct. This is very well explained in the Sati Sampajanya Sutta of Anguttara Nikaya. So in that terms also you can understand, so in many ways, so this morality, the virtues are interrelated with the meditation practice. Now Buddha mentioned, now assume that as a result of your own reflection, the reflection about your own morality, that you get some kind of a inner joy. Then Buddha mentioned, pamuditassa piti jayati. So when that kind of a little joy is available, slowly it may grow and it can lead to piti, what we call rapture. Piti manassa kayo pasambati. So when such kind of a rapture is available, the body, the mind become tranquil. Pasadda kayo sukhang vedeti. Now the body become tranquil, the mind become tranquil, and you feel comfortable, you feel happy. Sukhino chittang samadhyati. And when that kind of a conducive environment is available, now the mind get easily concentrated. Now you can see these are well interrelated. It is not that you simply develop sila and abandon the other parts. Development of morality is important, but on top of that, development of concentration, development of wisdom is also important. Now that is why if we consider Noble Eightfold Path, Buddha highlights about Sila Samadhi Panya. And we should not think it in a kind of a linear way. Rather, they have interrelationships where Sila helps to develop concentration, concentration helps to develop wisdom, wisdom again helps to develop Sila, the morality. So likewise, they have their interrelationships. So each and everyone is contributing to each other, helping to each other. So when it comes to this complete Noble Eightfold Path, there are also the morality appear like a kind of a standard that one is maintaining, and it becomes kind of his inherent quality now. He doesn't want to forcefully maintain it. Rather, it is very much like an ongoing process. It's an inherent quality now. So likewise, we can observe that how well Buddha has mentioned. Now, it is the beauty of a monk. It is the beauty of a nun. It is the beauty of the practitioner. Nowadays, actually, people are trying to assess a person's beauty, a monk's beauty, a monk's reputation with various other things. But here, Buddha mentioned if we consider the beauty of a monk, it is nothing but that is the sila bharana, nothing but the morality. So actually this is something I like to share with you today, and we'll see what are the other factors Buddha want to highlight with respect to other qualities, where Buddha mentioned about the strength of the practitioner, the speed of the practitioner, and again the right proportions of the practitioner. So we'll see those items in the coming days. And with that, I like to conclude today's Dhamma sermon. Thank you very much for attentive listening. Now, since there are many joining from Nissarana Vanaya and again joining from the remote, so let's share the merits. Today, actually, we have started the 279th residential retreat. It is a English medium retreat, and by the way, you can participate and submit your questions in Sinhala as well. And we have accumulated a lot of merits by participation through the question and answer session, and again by listening to the Dhamma sermon, and again developing mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. All these merits what we have accumulated today, let's share with all the past away relatives, with all the celestial beings, and whoever in need of merits. And again, let's wish these merits help us also to attain path, fruition, nibbana. While keeping these good wishes in our mind, let's recite the traditional verses. Ettavata hehi sambatang punya sampadang sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Ettavata hehi sambatang punya sampadang sabbe anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Ettavata hehi sambatang punya sampadang sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Akasattha ca bummattha devanaga mahiddika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkantu sasanang. Akasattha ca bummattha devanaga mahiddika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkantu desanang. Akasattha ca bummattha devanaga mahiddika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkantu mamparang. Idang vo ñātīnaṃ hotu sukita hontu ñātayo. Idang vo ñātīnaṃ hotu sukita hontu ñātayo. Idang vo ñātīnaṃ hotu sukita hontu ñātayo. Imina punya kammena māme bāla samāgamo satang samāgamo hotu yāva nibbāna pattiya. Imina punya kammena māme bāla samāgamo satang samāgamo hotu yāva nibbāna pattiya. Imina punya kammena māme bāla samāgamo satang samāgamo hotu yāva nibbāna pattiya. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.